Definitely. It feels like in general, I don't know, compared to opening weeks of the past few years, it just feels fresh. I don't know. It feels like the league has gotten a very natural and nice facelift in a way here. So kudos to really everyone involved in that. Welcome to In the Lab with Hoopsology. I am your host, Matt Thomas, and I am joined by the two co-hosts of this show. First, I want to introduce Alan Munzler. Alan, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, recovering from a root canal, so I'm hanging in there, but it's all good.
Prayers up for Alan. Swift recovery. Playing hurt today. We appreciate it. Good to have you on the show. And my other co-host is here as well, Justin Goodrum. You know him, you love him. Justin, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Nothing much happening. Halloween's tomorrow. Covering a film festival, so that's exciting. But the negative is have to be out on Halloween night. So just hopefully just get back home safe. That's kind of the main priority. But should be a fun time. So lots of basketball. Always Halloween and the NBA always associate with each other. So can't complain too much.
Awesome. So, sorry to put you on the spot here, but any particular films of major interest from what you've seen from that film festival?
Yeah, so it goes down tomorrow. It's the Denver Film Festival. They're showing the third film of the Knives Out franchise with what's his name? Daniel Craig, is that correct? So he's, it's a new adventure for him. They're showing the new George Clooney movie. They're showing the new Sydney Sweeney movie, which she plays Christy Martin, a Hall of Fame boxer. So there's plenty of interesting films being shown, plus a bunch of international films and shorts. It's pretty awesome, so I'm looking forward to it. So.
Right on. So Justin is covering a lot of drama tomorrow night at the film festival. And we have a lot of drama to cover today on the show. How you guys like that segue? But before we get into all the drama, and there is a lot, just want to give a quick shout out to new listeners of the podcast, new subscribers to our YouTube channel as well. So viewers and listeners, thank you so much for supporting the show. Again, we're a couple hundred away from our next subscriber goal on YouTube. So if you have a friend that's interested in these high-level NBA in particular, or really just basketball overall conversations that we're having, and our expert guests that we get to the pleasure of interviewing each week, please send them our way. Tell them to like, share, subscribe our show. Really appreciate all your support. Thank you very much for supporting our show. And speaking of our show, our lead topic today is some potential drama from a recent guest and friend of the show, Yaron Weitzman. Justin, you want to lead us in with what is going on here?
Yeah, so Yaron, he wrote a book. I believe his first book was called Taking It to the Top. Taking It to the Top, really highly heralded, critically acclaimed. So his new book, A Hollywood Ending, The Dreams and Drama of the LeBron Lakers, really goes into the relationship with LeBron and the front office. But apparently the Lakers have not liked what he has to say in the book. So I'm just going to let him kind of state what's going on with the drama with his book. Check it out.
The Lakers threatened to sue me to prevent you from reading this book. So I started working on this book around January 2023. Around that time, when you work on a project like this, you reach out to the principals. So I got in touch with Jeannie Buss and the Lakers. Jeannie and I actually engaged in a few messages. We even met a couple times. They were off-the-record meetings. Normally, I wouldn't be revealing that to you, except she was the one that put these meetings in public first.
There's somebody that's out there writing a book, and he said to me that I have a reputation of running a bare bones organization.
To be clear, I didn't accuse Jeannie or the Lakers of anything. All I do as a reporter is ask other people questions, do the reporting, give Jeannie and the principals the chance to respond. I am far from the first person to bring up the fact that the Lakers under Jeannie Buss might have not spent as lavishly as other organizations. For example, check out this story that ESPN ran after Jeannie sold her majority stake in the team. The only difference is I was willing to write this while Jeannie still owned the team. Anyway, the way it works when you work on a project like this is when you're done, you send the principals some fact-checking. Not positive stuff, just the stuff they might want to respond to. I did that for Lakers, and instead of getting on the phone with me, they decided to hire a famous defamation lawyer named Marty Singer to handle their dealings with me, and he eventually sent me a very strongly written letter. For example, they said that my reporting was, quote, full of thinly veiled misogynistic smears revealing a chauvinism and negative bias that undermines the reliability of my sources. Singer then punctuated the letter by adding that, quote, I want to be incredibly clear with you. There are many times when individuals threaten to sue with neither the reputation to stand up or scrutiny, nor the resources to pursue a strong libel claim. Please have no doubt neither of these issues apply here. Now, did I defame Jeannie Buss and Lakers? Absolutely not. All I know is this: if you want to read the book that the Lakers didn't want you to read, check out A Hollywood Ending.
Wow. So there it is. I can't think of, in many ways, a better sales pitch than that to entice readers. So if you're interested in that Lakers drama, pick up that book. And Alan, I'm curious to hear your thoughts in terms of the Lakers potentially taking legal action on Yaron here. In terms of what that projects, the message that sends, and just kind of your perception on the situation, with it seems like Jeannie Buss being pretty offended by this book's creation and release.
You would think that after all these years that people in power, rich people, whoever, would understand how the Streisand effect works and what it actually does. And yet over and over again, they fall into this trap. So those are my thoughts. They're going to help this book sell, and the lawsuit's not going to go through anything because I'm sure that his sources are valid. You have to prove, any kind of civil lawsuit like that, they've got to be able to prove that, that he's out to get them and made stuff up, and they're not going to be able to do that. So I just don't get it. I'm just be quiet. It's a sports book, it's there's an audience for it, but now that audience is going to grow, because this is the book that caused the Lakers to sue the writer.
Absolutely. And Justin, you spent some time with Yaron, of course. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts too in seeing this headline break. Really, within about a week of him being on our show?
Yeah.
Pretty crazy timing. Maybe fortunate timing in some ways for our show. We had the great pleasure of getting to interview him. But Justin, what are your just kind of thoughts outside looking in here?
Yeah, not too much. I agree with Alan. You're just hyping up this book by drawing attention to it. A cheap plug for us, like you mentioned, Matt. That interview is published on our YouTube channel and on our podcast feed, so you want to check that out. It's available. Keep in mind, this interview was recorded before all this quote-unquote drama went down with Yaron and the Lakers. But, he goes into insight about LeBron, and just I think he's been able to really, and Matt and I, we've talked, and Alan, we've talked about this when we were working together, and Matt, we talked about it just, through text chains or just through the podcast. I think LeBron has done a good job of creating this public narrative that is very separate than how he actually acts in real life. And I think the book goes into that, especially in this latter phase of his career. And I think it doesn't look good. He doesn't look good in the book. Now, will anything come out? I don't think so. I think, honestly, it doesn't really do anything in terms of, tarnishing his legacy in terms of what's in this book. But I think his kind of public perception to your casual person that lightly follows sports or even follows the NBA a little bit more, I think you're going to find some very interesting inside information to truly how LeBron thinks in terms of his experience within the Lakers. You have a lot of big egos. I mean, the Lakers are the most glamorous franchise in all of sports, I would say, arguably. And so you have arguably the most famous athlete of the 21st century. You put both of those two combustible elements together, you're going to get friction. So I'm not surprised what Yaron had to say regarding their relationship.
Well said, gentlemen. So let's move into our next topic here. And of course, it's a big one. We last touched base on In the Lab predicting the Western Conference together. So if you want to hear our predictions and maybe laugh at me for picking the Warriors to do so poorly, granted it's early, but you can go check out those previews. But I might be eating my words from that preview. Anyway, we have had basketball action now. We are well into the NBA season, about a week and a half in. And I just wanted to kind of go around real quick and just kind of see maybe one team, or it could be a player, take it the direction you want, but just one thing generally that has surprised you in terms of the play and the performance on the court before we get into broadcasting and even maybe bigger topics than that. So, Justin, I'll go ahead and lead off with you. One thing that surprised you.
Yeah, before I get into my homerism, shout out to Danny Meringue, in which his portion, his interview has been published, and him talking about the gambling scandal in the Portland Trail Blazers will be out by the time you're listening to this. But also, he talked about how the Trailblazers have been a huge surprise as well. So I'll let him fill you in as to why the Trailblazers have been a huge surprise this season. But I'm going to be the homer. I'm going to say the Bulls. I don't care, because I'm going to do it. Because, you know, I'm not. Who knows when this is going to end? So I'm going to ride this wave of positivity. The Bulls are 4-0 with key wins over the Pistons, the Magic, and recently the Kings. That was kind of like your ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend game with the Sacramento Kings, and a nice game with Zach LaVine. But it wasn't enough to beat Chicago. Here are some comments from CHGO. It says, credit to the Bulls for showing them down a bit in the second half. That's talking about the Kings. Though that could be due in part to the Kings playing the final 24 minutes of a back-to-back. I think time will prove that the Bulls defense is not as elite as certain stats suggest in the first week of the season. That doesn't mean they can't get any better, but they'll need to when the luck runs dry. That's totally true. That's Matt Peck, former guest of the show. The Bulls face off against the Knicks in the NBA Cup. So by the time you listen to this, probably you know the result of that game. But the NBA Cup kicks off on Halloween. So riding this momentum, pretty positive about just the young core of this team. I think for the first time, well, I'm optimistic compared to if this was like, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and this was with DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine. A lot of just aging veterans. This has a young core. So even if the Bulls, like, I don't know, they come back to earth, but they manage to stay within 500, I mean, they could create some trade assets here, worst case scenario, if they kind of keep competitive. So I think this is a good sign. I mean, the best case scenario, they just, they become a surprise of the Eastern Conference. I don't see that happening. But even if they're mediocre, I think there's some hope here in terms of building towards the future. So just enjoying this 4-0 start, even though I know that the luck will run out for sure.
Well, this may be the most positive. I'm going to have to go back in the archives, but this may be the most positive I've ever heard Justin
right. It is.
talk about
Correct.
the Bulls when it's not the MJ era that we're
Agreed.
reflecting on. So,
Correct.
So I'm very happy for you, man. Just on a personal level, this is great to hear.
I'm basking in this glory until Christmas, and then it'll be over. So.
Soak it in, man. You deserve it for sure. Alan, we'll throw to you next. Any what's your kind of main surprise you want to mention of this opening season?
Yeah, the biggest surprise, James Harden has a son. I mean, nobody knew about this. He has a 6-year-old son. Nobody knew, and he's like active in his life. Here's the things when he was in Houston that we knew about James Harden. He likes strip clubs. He doesn't have the internet. He's probably the least media savvy superstar of our times. And he's a very private person. and now we know he's a very private person. So he kept his son out of the spotlight. I mean, kudos to James and his circle of friends for not spilling tea about anything like this. So that's been my biggest surprise, was to find out that James Harden had a son. And he has another one on the way. Congratulations, James. I will say that the Netflix starting five, from what I'm seeing online, it's really rehabilitated a lot of people's views on James Harden. A lot of people are like, I really actually like this guy a lot now. So it's kind of, I don't know, redemption for Houston fans who felt attacked for our Harden love all those years. So that was my biggest surprise. I know it's not about the game or the games, but it's about one of our best players, and I was like, what? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, I really respect kind of keeping that privacy and the space kind of going almost like a Tim Duncan methodology with your personal life. So tip of the cap for that. And yeah, with you, Alan, I had no clue. So that is quite the shocker. I'm going to go ahead and, because it reflects back on conversation that you and I had, Justin, when we were looking at the Eastern Conference, I'm going to say the 76ers.
Agreed.
Justin, you'll remember I did put them like kind of just barely in the play-in range. And my thought was, there's enough talent on this team that I can't count them out at least making it into the play-in round, because if a few things go right for them, you could see a situation where they climb into the Eastern Conference standings somewhere. And lo and behold, I just didn't know that it was going to be VJ Edgecombe that just came in so NBA ready. I mean, one of the most NBA ready debuts we've ever seen, maybe even more impressive than LeBron James's debut. Really took everyone by surprise, and is starting to breathe new life into the franchise. You're starting to hear speculation and questions about, well, hey, can we deal Paul George? Can we deal, Joel Embiid? I know they're massive contracts, but can we sort of resuscitate the hope for this season now that we're seeing this spark for the 76ers? So I still don't know that I'm going to have them up in like the home court advantage tier of the Eastern Conference at this point. A little too soon for that. But just the fact that we're showing fight and signs of life here in Philadelphia compared to last season, it's a total about face. So just want to give them a tip of the cap, because I have in the past been pretty critical of the 76ers. So I'll open it up, and just anything else on the court that you guys quickly want to rapid fire, anything else that surprised you, Alan? It looks like you've got something.
Yeah, I mean, the 76ers were my number two and my number one on court, but my number two on court is the Spurs. I think they're off to a hot start. Wemby has looked absolutely phenomenal. I'm almost to the point where I'm close to saying, like, OKC, be glad you got your championship last year, because Wemby is going to be owning the league for a long time to come. Health is always the thing with him, but so far he looks really good. What the Spurs do with De'Aaron Fox is going to make a difference.
Justin, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you were the one who put the Spurs the highest of all of us on
I think so.
The preview predictions. So he is starting to show that sort of like Steph Curry in different ways, like a gravitational pull where he's like, I'm going to elevate this team so much by all the intangibles that I can do as well as the amazing things I can do otherwise. Just the way he elevates a defense, and you see it on the offensive end with the ridiculous things. And now it seems like, compared to his first seasons, it's really like you're seeing these highlights chained together. Like it's not only ridiculous blocks and then the highlights over. It's like we're getting these ridiculous blocks and then there's like a fall away 3-pointer that he's hitting or things like that. So the highlights are getting longer, but still just as amazing, sustained throughout, which is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, totally agree. And I would say with Wemby that he is what Zion Williamson should have been. Just the hype and how much potential that he had. And I just think with Wemby, his mentality to the game is a lot different. I'm hoping that remains the case. So that's been incredible. I would say another disappointing thing has been the Orlando Magic. I mean, they are 1-4.
Yep.
I mean, man, that is crazy to me. I was not expecting that. So that's a little bit of a disappointment. I mean, everybody else kind of at the bottom, I would say. I mean, you got a lot of teams that are like 500. I mean, that's kind of whatever. The Wizards, the Raptors, I mean, the Pacers, the Nets, they're struggling. That's not too much of a surprise there. Take a look at the West. I mean, Pelicans are 0-4, which is a disappointment. Zion, I mean, he's supposed to be skinny Zion, and they're 0-4. The Suns are struggling. The Mavericks, I mean, everybody else is like 2-3. So it's still fairly early. But I would say the Magic's probably the biggest disappointment so far, considering the expectations I had of them, this season. So,
yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, people were talking Jamal Mosley as possible coach of the year, and now what? He might be the first coach out.
Right. Yeah.
Yikes. Alan, if I could just pick your brain for a second, just kind of, we talked about the Bulls a little bit, Justin's team. If I could just get your quick, rapid-fire takes on what you've seen from the Rockets so far. I think at the time of recording, they're 2-2 right now. They also faced off against OKC, as we all know, so not the easiest schedule to start.
Yeah, I mean, the first game of the season was probably the best game of the season so far. A double overtime thriller, went back and forth. They lost to a pretty good, rough Detroit team that plays a lot like Houston played last year. Very scrappy, defensive-minded, and I think Houston still has a lot to figure out, particularly in the point guard. For all that the offense has looked cloggy and like just weird, they are the number one offensive rating team in the NBA right now.
Wow.
They are scoring the most points. And it's almost all entirely due to offensive rebounding. What is it like? I think it's got to be like 50% when Şengün and Adams are playing together. 50% of shots are being misses or being rebounded by them. I mean, that's insane. Steven Adams, all-time great offensive rebounder. He's just too strong for most people to handle. Their defense has been a little worrisome. I haven't seen the same scrappiness that we saw the past 2 years under Ime. So I think that's been kind of an area where I'm a little concerned. But I'm pretty happy with the trajectory of the team because I think they're only going to get better as the season goes on. And I think even Reed Shepherd is starting to show a little bit, hey, he can play. He's still going to make some dumb mistakes, but I think everybody does. And this is really like his rookie season. So I think it's going to be a roller coaster, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, well said. Guys, feel free to continue giving us some opening surprises if you like, but I also want to open it up to, we all know and we've covered on the show, the broadcasting changes that have happened. So, for example, Prime starting to cover basketball. NBA on the NBC is back. Shout out to John Tesh. And inside the NBA, being on ESPN and how different that may be or may not be. So I just want to open it up to your guys' impressions on the opening coverage of the NBA. We know the data is in that the ratings are doing great. Justin, I know you had posted earlier on our Twitter account, X account, whatever, follow us, Hoopsology Pod, that, this is, I think, the best ratings the NBA has had in 15 years.
Correct.
So it seems like all in all, it's going pretty well, but Justin, I'll start with you again. Just any surprise in the broadcasting or just any impression on the broadcasts that stand out?
Yeah, this is always a thing that I've always questioned, especially in this age of social media, is how much presentation is important. And I think just referencing our interview with Danny again, at the time of recording this, we just recorded the interview with him. He was referencing how a lot of the new presentation elements of NBC, and he didn't say this about Amazon, but I think they're kind of in the same pattern, just in terms of highlighting the game, right? What is going on in the court and not about drama, not about, just hot takes, what's actually going on X's and O's, right? I think Hubie Brown was really great at this as a color commentator of really explaining what's happening on the court. I really liked his commentary. And I think we're getting that in a more of a, pre-game, post-game presentation-wise. So I think that's been impressive, but I've always questioned how much does that matter? And I think, honestly, we've seen the play on the court, too. There's been some amazing games. I mean, it's been off. The basketball's been really good. So if the game sucked, then it wouldn't really matter about the presentation. There's only so much you can do. But I think the games have really delivered so far in terms of the competitiveness. I will say, to get into the more nerdy minutia, I noticed Awful Announcing, shout out to them. They had a story just about how NBC has really increased their presentation in terms of the video quality. And so a lot of their games are more in terms of 1080 HDR compared to the other networks. And I think, ESPN's probably the biggest culprit in terms of how well it looks, compared to its other competitors there. So I will say, from a presentation standpoint, props to NBC, props to Amazon to taking some chances and being different. And so I like that there's a diversity in terms of how the game looks, opinions, and how the approaches are. Like, we're not getting these broadcasts looking the same. That would be terrible. I think each of them has their own flavor. They look different. They sound different. They feel different. And maybe you could say whatever about MJ, but at least it's something different, in terms of what we've been getting before, which is a mediocre ESPN broadcast, and then inside the NBA, which is very polarizing to a lot of people. So, I'll give props to a lot of the networks just in terms of the chances they're taking in terms of the presentation, in terms of just glorifying and hyping up the game. Especially it's needed now, considering all the scandals and everything going on. So,
yeah, well said. Alan, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with Justin. I think, the Bob Costas intros the other night on Tuesday were just fire. This is why Milwaukee, New York matters. Right? Yeah. This is a historic rivalry. This is why the Warriors Clippers matter. These guys, the Clippers, have wanted to be the Warriors for so long. And that's we were not getting that. We were getting a lot of grandstanding and showing off of the media personalities, a lot of focus on media personalities, rather than on the game. If I'm looking at the studio crew for NBC, I think those guys are great. I love that Melo he's like, I am Melo. This is what I wear. He's not in a suit. He's sitting there just saying his thing. I look at the Amazon. Blake Griffin is a natural at this. It is uncanny how good he already is. It's just talking about the game, talking to the other people, and giving some really good analysis. I think both of those, NBC and Amazon, have, when it first came up that TNT was going to lose the license and all that, I was kind of like, oh no, I've been watching TNT forever. But I am really been happy with what they've done here with the games. As Danny said on our podcast, it might be bare minimum, but having player introductions, having the anthem, having all showing all that stuff, it sets the stage. It drives anticipation. Could you imagine if the Super Bowl just started with the first play of the game? As much as people want to, it's that anticipation that gets everybody excited. So kudos to them. I'm very, very pleased. For the Inside the NBA guys, it's pretty much, for me at least, I've caught a little bit here and there. It's been kind of more of the same, but certainly an improvement over whatever ESPN had been rolling out there. Honestly, the less Stephen A, the better, I think. Don't need somebody playing Tetris on their phone instead of watching the games and then commentating on it. At least those guys are watching the games. So I'm pretty pleased with where this is going, and hopefully NBC can keep and Amazon can keep the drive going. I mean, I love that people are checking it out and watching more basketball than they ever have. It's putting the truth to the lie that Adam Silver gave us, that this is a game of highlights. So I love that they're proving him wrong.
Very well said. And I kind of just want to highlight a point that you mentioned there and just say that, for about the last decade or so, the pregame ritual was sort of setting us up as basketball fans for disappointment. It's kind of like the commentary is, well, who's going to step up? Who's going to do something today? We need to see so-and-so do this, just kind of in the moment and where the teams are in the season. But you're totally right, Alan, with what you said in setting up the history, building that level of importance, building the spectacle, showing you and making you feel like none of us want to waste our time on anything that we do. Everyone's busy. Everyone has limited amount of time to give. So in presenting it this way, it makes you feel like you are connected to a great tradition, which the NBA has, a rich history. So I think that's very well said. I want to just quickly mention the timelessness of Michael Jordan. I just have to say, and just having something other than slop and quick, like just kind of instant reaction and hot takes to a half of basketball that is instantly kind of discarded. I mean, unless something really controversial is said, which usually even that is not a halftime, a break type of thing that happens on any of the broadcasts, to now replace that on the NBC side. And Prime, give them a tip of the cap too, Justin, like you mentioned, like showing almost like video game style, reviewing actual basketball plays and X's and O's. That's really cool, and I think beneficial, has more value than what we've seen in the past. But back to my original point, to have a few minutes with Michael Jordan at the half mark of these games, even if it's once a week, and I think a lot of people are joking about this being done very lazily with maybe it's just one interview that they're cutting through the season. I think ultimately you look at how people are reacting at it, even if that is the case, that's how they did it. It's 1, 2, or 3 interviews. People love it. People go nuts for it, and they're talking about it. They're expanding the conversation from something that normally was just a blip on the radar. And even in social media, you're not commenting all that much on what's being said at these breaks at halftime. So I think, to me, it's showing the timelessness and the interest that still is there in Michael Jordan, but also it's elevating the conversation of the game. So I'm just really impressed by that so far.
I mean, I couldn't agree more, Matt. I don't even think it's necessarily. I mean, Michael Jordan's like kind of like who your blockbusters you start with. I think the right presentation, you could do this with a lot of different players from different eras. I mean, we all miss Roy Firestone, I think is what it comes down to. A lot of people grew up watching Roy Firestone make people cry. And that's that one-on-one with the player, asking them very candid questions and getting very candid answers. That's a hit anywhere, anytime, anywhere you look at it. So I think this can grow beyond Michael Jordan. I think this could be like a really good, interesting historical perspective for different eras and different players. I mean, imagine if they could get the notoriously cranky Oscar Robertson on just a little bit of an interview. I mean, it would just be amazing to spilling some tea about Kareem. It'd be awesome.
Totally agree. So guys, I'll open it up again, just kind of before we get to what happened on day 3 of the NBA season. Any other just opening thoughts on play or broadcast or otherwise that are coming to mind?
Nothing too much. I just think overall, before we'll get into it later, but it seems like that the players are really into the beginning of the season, which has been nice to see. Again, like I said earlier, a lot of competitive games, which has been awesome. And I think just the diversity of the league, and just I think people are starting to realize that parity is good for the NBA, and not seeing like a ton of these like dynasties, and then we have like the bottom half of the conferences be irrelevant. So I think it's just seeing those storylines play out. I will say another presentation element that I really are trying to zoom in on is that I forgot it. They have the two color commentators. They're on each sides of the bench. So I think Austin Rivers is on one side, and I forgot who is on the other side for Peacock. Kind of replicating what the NHL does in terms of having the reporters like on their bench. So it's kind of a work in progress, but I give them credit for trying something new. So again, just I think the competitiveness of the games. Hopefully, the NBA Cup replicates that. I think that's going to be a huge thing. Especially with everything going on, as the NBA Cup being competitive and having an exciting conclusion. I think it's going to be really critical for the NBA this year.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll just add that I know there's been some bugs and there's some things to work out, but I think the approach for the new NBA League Pass being taken over by Amazon is I think will be a better product than what we had been getting, which was not a great product. And NBA TV, I think, will be better also as being fully owned by the NBA. I think 24/7 now. I think there's some good changes there that have come across there that I think, like I said, I know the tap to watch has been a little buggy to start the season for some people, but and the multi-view has been a little buggy, but ultimately they're trying new things, and that's pretty exciting.
Definitely. It feels like in general, I don't know, compared to opening weeks of the past few years, it just feels fresh. I don't know. It feels like the league has gotten a very natural and nice facelift in a way here. We will go ahead and move to our last topic here. And Justin, I'm going to throw to you for this. We've been covering this on the show. The WNBA CBA is approaching their deadline. It'll be tomorrow at the time of recording this show. That's Halloween, October 31st. And Justin, if you can just kind of enlighten us on the latest, and then we can move into our thoughts on this.
Yeah. So we all know the drill. We've been talking about it. I think this has been one of the prevailing themes of this year. And that's been the, I would say, war between the WNBA players and its owners. So the WNBA has offered players a 30-day extension to continue negotiations for a new collective bargaining agreement. Sources told ESPN on Tuesday. I don't think the players have accepted that. Could be wrong about that. But this was set up from a WNBA PA senior advisor and legal counsel, Aaron D. Drake, said recently on the Athletics No Offseason podcast that there will not be a new agreement by Friday, which is Halloween. He said, quote, "We worked hard to be able to say on Friday we did it. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen," Drake said in a podcast episode. "In a dance, it takes two to tango, and it's been very difficult to find a beat, find a rhythm, and find the same sense of urgency from the league, just to be frank, to get this done." Yeah, this is a labor stoppage. And I think, honestly, the players have the leverage in this situation. Now, I don't think the players are seeking the same money as the NBA counterparts. I think that is a misnomer. But I do think they have a lot more leverage as compared to the last CBA negotiations and the previous one prior to that. The league has never been more popular. They have arguably one of the most popular athletes in all of sports, Caitlin Clark. You have a lot of momentum, and you have a very successful alternative league with Unrivaled, and another alternative league with Athletes Unlimited, which I think the basketball world within America has done a nice job of adapting into fixing the paradigm and the complaints of players playing overseas and rectifying that somewhat within America. I think that's going to be huge leverage when it comes to this. I mean, we had, I think, Carly Bell. She said it that Unrivaled is going to play a huge factor in this. And honestly, the WNBA is very, very lucky Caitlin Clark is hurt, because if she is not, I can just see her easily playing in that unrivaled league. I mean, if that were to happen, I mean, I think all hell breaks loose. I really don't know what happens from there. I mean, they're very fortunate that she probably is just going to shut it down and just wait till the WNBA season starts, whenever that's going to happen. So, all in all, I think this is going to be just a war back and forth. And, yeah, I can't really tell what's going to happen, but I do think the players have a lot of momentum. The NFLPA, and I think the MLS Players Association too, they have released statements standing by the players. So they have a lot of momentum, the players do, at this moment.
Alan, I'll just pass it right to you. Any thoughts on that or otherwise?
Yeah, it's fitting that the deadline is on Halloween, because this offer of an extension is definitely a trick. It is not a treat. This is like an abusive partner coming at you and saying, "Joe, just give me a little more time." They've had all the time they need. It's time to go into the lockout and start the real negotiations. The players need to take the stand here and not accept that extension and say, "No, we need to start negotiating." 30 days doesn't make a difference.
What I'll say, this is all really interesting. I mean, this whole saga leading up to this. I don't know if you guys saw, Pablo Torre had on his show David Sampson and John Skipper, if you remember that name. Yeah. And they framed it as kind of a debate, but I would say it was really more of just a conversation with people with different views. It certainly wasn't a formal debate, but it kind of highlighted some of the big differences. David Sampson was kind of trying to, I think, frame it from the owner's side, and framed it as like a very little chance that the WNBA players are going to get what they're asking for. And then John Skipper kind of was saying, well, they're going to make progress towards their eventual goal of getting a revenue share system similar to what the NBA has. Not this deal in particular, but eventually. I just find that this whole effort is very hard to tell. You get mixed messages in terms of what the players are wanting. I mean, other than, of course, bigger salaries. And then it's also very difficult to tell because the information isn't shared in terms of what the actual revenue the league is making. And so what capacity they have to share that with the players, as well as what the NBA is getting from the WNBA as part of this revenue split. So it makes it very hard as someone coming in and trying to objectively analyze the situation. I think on face value, yeah, you look at Caitlin Clark making whatever the number is, like $76K, at least in her first season in the league, a max contract, being a couple $100,000, like 200,000 some, I think. You look at that and yeah, it seems like with the attention and the broadcasting deal that the WNBA is now going into, yes, it does seem those numbers are low, but it just seems like there is such a gap. And of course, you guys are welcome to weigh in, but there's just such a gap in the knowledge that's available and even the specific mission that the players are striving for. And I'm sure a lot of that is kept out of our view because they want that negotiating power when they come to the table.
Well, I've even seen things online about like what is true in regards to how much revenue the WNBA even makes in terms of how they're distributing that data to the players. So what we hear about, like the WNBA doesn't make a profit, they're struggling. I mean, that's quite bizarre when the Golden State Valkyries, their success this season. I mean, they're evaluated pretty high. So I don't know. To me, that's bizarre in terms of a league that's quote unquote not making a profit, that is struggling. But yeah, you have an expansion franchise be instantly a success. By the way, without any star players. And by the way, without a deep playoff run either. Wasn't like it was a solid season for them. but it wasn't like, they had, Paige Beckers playing for them or Caitlin Clark. I mean, this was a franchise that grew its fan base within San Francisco with great marketing, and it paid off in terms of developing a hardcore fan base that they're able to get the fans of the Warriors to become Valkyries fans. So, to me, I think, like you said, Matt, there are a lot of questions all the way around, just in terms of the notions of this league struggling financially and it having an issue paying its players. I think that's the same thing in terms of charter flights, right? It's just like, well, we can't afford it. Like, I don't know. That seems pretty ridiculous to me. I mean, in terms of you have the NBA backing your league and you can't afford chartered flights. I mean, that just seems pretty pathetic for elite players. That you deem as, the best players in the world, yet you can't get them the accommodations to perform at a maximum level. They have to, constantly request it in post-game press conferences. So I think there's a lot of questions to be had in terms of what data is out there. And you're right, man. I think a unifying message in terms of exactly what they want, it would be effective, because right now it's kind of more in generalities. We don't have any true details regarding what truly the players want exactly. So I think their messaging could be improved there. But they still got the momentum. I think they got the leverage, in my opinion.
I think eventually, when it's all said and done, yes, they will get bigger salaries, and they probably will get bigger portion of revenue sharing. But like to your point with the Valkyries, the team valuation is valued very well. I just honestly don't know, and I can't tell you. And yeah, maybe I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit. I don't know if they're operating at a loss. I don't know if they made profits.
Sure.
I would assume some profits, given that their attendance was very good. I mean, among the top of the league. I just honestly, I don't have that information, so it's really hard to judge. I think, as we've said before on this show, probably what ends up happening down the line is, yes, the players get closer to their goal, but they're not going to get whatever they're targeting. But that's just kind of how negotiations like this go in general, because the owners are going to push back on that. But that may be a Captain Obvious kind of statement. Alan, any other thoughts on this upcoming CBA?
No, I think it's going to be pretty painful. And I think it's going to be ultimately, the players, I think, will get most of what they want, like you were saying, but it's going to be painful to get there.
Justin, I'm curious what you think, like, probability here is that, a lockout occurs, because when we talk about mixed messages, one thing that we talked about on the show, and that's been very public, because Angel Reese has a podcast, and she mentioned pretty clearly, like, we're sitting out if we don't get what we want. And granted, she has, I think, a good amount of star power, and so certainly some influence there. I don't know how much influence she has, like, player to player, since she hasn't been in the league for very long. Yeah. But she has a big spotlight put on her. She's in the public eye. Are you worried, and do you see a big potential here that the league may lock out and potentially lose some of that momentum that they've been building over the last 2 seasons in particular?
I would say it's, especially with Cathy Engelbert as commissioner, it's 100% lock. They won't go to a lockout. Especially with that situation with Napheesa Collier, it was game over from right there, 100%. And I do disagree with the momentum part. I think with Unrivaled, that changes things. A lot of players are going to play there. They're on a major television deal. People watch the league. And so, to me, normally you're right, Matt. They'd be kind of out of sight, out of mind. But the way Unrivaled is, and just, that's controversy creates cash, and you don't know when the players are going to, return. So it could be your only chance to watch, WNBA players is in Unrivaled. So I think they're going to have a lot of momentum and a lot of leverage. And I think this league is popular. There's players that the mainstream media want to see. compared to before. For you can label it as misogynistic or sexist or just their own ignorance, whatever adjective you want to use. But that wasn't the case maybe 10 years ago. If there was a lockout, I don't think too many people would sadly care. But they do care now, and that's what matters. They have a lot of momentum. So I do think there will be a lockout. I think that whole situation with Napheesa Collier and Cathy Engelbert pretty much sealed the deal on that. And I think as long as she's commissioner, I don't think things are going to be rectified. I think that was very clear. And Napheesa Collier, I mean, you're right, Matt, about Angel Reese in terms of how much clout she has, but Napheesa Collier does. Napheesa Collier, I think, has the respect of the entire league. And what she put out there about Cathy Engelbert, I mean, during the WNBA finals, I mean, that's how can she be the commissioner of this league at this point if you're going to rectify anything? And as long as she's commissioner, I mean, how can you have negotiations? I mean, like you're saying, Alan, like this whole extension's a joke as long as Cathy Engelbert's in charge. So.
Yeah, I'm curious too, and I want to wrap here, but on the other side of that too, because we had allegedly, an anonymous owner kind of came forward and said like that was super unprofessional of fee, and so I wonder how many other owners that weren't even willing to give an anonymous quote also agree, and maybe that's also part of your prediction that maybe that signaled the lockout, is that now with those comments coming out, even though they may 100% be rightful, I wonder if it kind of hardens the owner's stance if they are more behind Cathy Engelbert compared to the Players Association. Certainly, you would have to think they're at least a little bit based on the comments that Fee made. But I wonder if that kind of preempted this by putting the owners in a hardened stance, and now they're more willing to just say, hey, we're going to lock out for a bit until we get more of what we want out of this negotiation. Purely speculation on my part.
Alan, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, Justin, about the Fee Engelbert stuff, because I agree with you. I think that marked kind of that was the line in the sand right there, and which is why I think it's going to be painful. Matt, to your point, I think the owners are backing Cathy Engelbert. We've talked a little bit about this because she's one of them. She's a CEO, she's this business person, and that's what they respect. That's why they'll back her. Now, I think some teams are going to want to get back on the court faster than others, and so like the owners of the Fever are going to want to get back on the court as soon as possible. So that's where you're going to have to see maybe some movement from the owners, is from the owners of the really popular teams.
Yeah, true. I got a couple of late-breaking news items before we say goodbye. First, Alexa Philippou from ESPN said this an hour ago that she can confirm that the WNBA and the WNBA PA have agreed on a 30-day extension as they work towards a new collective bargaining agreement. So the new deadline will be November 30th. The 30-day extension was initially offered by the league, as reported earlier this week. So that was as of an hour ago, the recording of this podcast. And then another thing you mentioned, Matt, Pablo Torre, he broke this news that members of Congress will not be satisfied until Adam Silver answers questions in a televised hearing under oath. And that is from Pablo Torre. So, yeah, things are getting spicy.
Pablo been breaking tons of news over the last month or two.
Yeah.
He is just, I don't know what that man is doing. He must not sleep. But shout out to him.
And shout out to him on Breaking Points as a political show. Very good about presenting both sides. He went on with Sagar and Crystal discussing the gambling scandal as well as the Kawhi situation. So if you want more context as to what he's been going through as a journalist and why it seems like the only investigative journalist really covering this, and I would say Ben Golliver too, Danny Marang mentioned as well. But I would say shout out to that show if you just want some more context with Pablo Torre. And his own podcast as well. I think it's called, what's it called? Pablo Finds Out, I think. Yeah,
That's
Pablo
right.
Finds Out. So
That's
check
right.
that out too. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, we got to call it a night. I think we've put in our time in the lab here, and I hope you all, the listeners and viewers, enjoyed it. Let us know, as always, your thoughts in the comments, or get at us on Twitter or wherever you're doing social media. As always, we appreciate you all, your support of the show. We will be back again very soon with more interviews dropping in our feeds, as well as another episode of In the Lab to come. So for Justin Goodrum, for Alan Munzler, I'm Matt Thomas. Until next time, peace out.
See you later. Like and subscribe.